despite slowly getting to say goodbye to him, I'm still overwhelmed at the staggering sense of shock and loss that he's gone. Tony was an amazing father. I feel like I've lost one of my best friends. As a child, I remember thinking of him as a protector. I knew my mom was this amazing source of comfort and light, but my dad was the one who kept us all safe. I'm so grateful for having him as my dad. I'm so grateful for the cute memories, for his contribution to the person I've grown into, and for the monumental love and support I have experienced over the years. I loved growing up going to job sites, so much so that the smell of lumber reminds me of him. When we were kids, he was always up to play with us no matter what was going on, and he used to prank us a lot, which did follow us into adulthood. I love how he would take these epic naps in the pool when we moved to Florida. He would get some life vests and noodles and a boogie board for each arm, and he would float vertically in the water like a sunfish. And this is just the fondest memory for me. I thought it was so funny. During my adolescent years, I can tell you that he fought very hard to save me from myself. And when I was in my early 20s, he sort of just became one of my best friends. I can't really describe it, but he was there for me in any way he could be. I think it was just him being totally present and available for me. He fully lived in the moment, and as a 20-something, that was an impossible concept to understand. I still reap the benefits when we would spend time together because I felt like he helped carry some of the weight in my mind, and I would have a feeling of contentment whenever I was with him, even during a really antsy phase of my life. He never showed that he worried too much or tried to dictate what my life would look like. Even when I wanted to spend a month driving cross-country alone, exploring new places, he didn't try to discourage me. He just taught me how to change a tire, how to check my oil, how to read an actual map, and he bought me a taser. In his eyes, there was nothing that I couldn't accomplish. His mantra was, make a plan, make it happen. That open-mindedness and focus has served me well as an adult, and I'm so thankful for his support, friendship, and guidance that have been a constant in my life. I would like to talk briefly about his story with cancer. And I use the word story intentionally instead of the typical metaphor of battle with cancer. That metaphor implies both a victor and a victim, and Tony never viewed himself as one. The battle metaphor implies that had he just fought hard enough, he could have overcome it, and anyone knows or who has watched a loved one deal with cancer treatment knows that sentiment just doesn't give their journey the respect that it deserves. And it doesn't leave room for the joy that's experienced and the bonds that are built during the in-between times as well as the rough times. After the initial diagnosis and treatment of prostate cancer in 2005, his doctors couldn't say how or when it would come back, but they said it inevitably would return. So he went on living his life 3 months at a time with blood draws and scans when necessary up until about 4 years ago. The cancer spread to his bones, 37 spots to be exact. He went to work, events, he even traveled out of state to see family and friends, all the while having cancer over much of his skeleton. He never once asked why me, and as each new spot popped up, he just asked, what's the plan? Let's make it happen. And he always reminded himself that someone else had it harder than he did. As things progressed, we sought treatment at Moffitt Cancer Center, where I was lucky enough to be at his side for the most important meetings and restagings. He went through every available option prior to chemotherapy. It was more radiation, more pills, IV radiation, even immune therapy. Then in 2020, they decided it was time for chemotherapy. To commemorate, he shaved his head into a mohawk and dyed it blue like Moffitt's emblem. He also had his Gunno shirts made, as in giving up is not an option. He lived by this mantra and went headstrong into 2 aggressive cycles of chemotherapy. Over the months of chemo, he had multiple hospitalizations, which all followed roughly the same trajectory. Suddenly, he would become very sick and unstable and confused. He would go to the hospital for IV antibiotics and IV fluids, then almost immediately perk up and act like we were all overreacting, and immediately start demanding to be discharged home. Each ride home from the hospital also followed the same script. Music loud, windows down, commenting on all of the beauty around us and expressing the gratitude for living and raising his family in such a magical place. Due to the progressive complications from chemo, his cancer team wanted to stop the treatments earlier than expected. He didn't want to feel like he was giving up. He was gonna all the way, but he kept just saying that he wanted to be home in his bed on the water with the dogs. His focus truly began to shift into maintaining what brought him true joy and peace. It was a much needed reprieve that allowed for a few months of recovery where we got to see his color reappear and vitality return. Then, the early summer of this year, he was just about to begin an experimental clinical trial that promised much less toxic side effects than chemotherapy, but we found that the cancer had spread even further. He also had a small stroke at that time, which affected his speech and his ability to write or text. And I know it was so hard for him that he didn't get to properly say goodbye to all of you. All he wanted to do was be at home, so he took control of his story and he decided to step off the conveyor belt of modern medicine. In the spirit of Gunno, although he was home on hospice, we continued speech therapy, which gave him a sense of working towards a goal. He never gave up the work needed to make incremental improvements to his life. He never gave up the opportunity to experience joy in his remaining days, and he never gave up trying to make us laugh and let us know how much he loved us. Watching someone experience all of their life's lasts has been an honor. As a terminal illness slowly chips away at a person's vitality, the layers of ego and defenses are peeled back, and what remains is the truest form of self. We were all able to see our dad's purest version of his soul, which was kind and warm, and even in the face of imminent mortality, he was selfless in caring for our comfort and well-being. A few days after he passed, I took a nap in his bed, and I was able to experience his physical point of view. The mattress was the most comfortable I've ever slept on. The temperature was perfect, as the windows never received direct sunlight, and there were photos of each of his loved ones in sight. You could see the canal breeze blowing through the palm trees, and at that time of day, the light reflecting off the canal was mirrored on the wall. The house was filled with the smells of cooking and the sounds of dishes lightly clanking in the kitchen. Patrick's eclectic music playlist was on the background and just slightly overshadowed by their conversation and Ashley's adorable laughter. You could hear the cute sounds of the dogs as they paced around checking in on everyone, while Mia rested her head on the side of the bed for cuddles. And in those moments, I understood just how important it was for him to be home. He was able to enjoy moments filled with peace and vibrant life and ultimate comforts of home with the family he loves so deeply. I am eternally grateful for my father, that my father grew into my best friend, and I will treasure the family and home he has given us all.